your hostess with the most trouble, as always. Welcome back. So we are continuing our franchise review in Sleepaway Camp 3. We are right here for you. Teenage Wasteland. Yeah, so this came out in 1989. We have Pamela Springsteen returning to play Angela. We also have Michael Pollard and Sandra Dorsey in this. Now, this is one that, for those of you who may or may not know, this was actually shot right after the filming of Part 2. So, yeah, and you know what? This one, as much as I love 2 as a sequel, this one is okay, but you can definitely tell that this one has that sort of rushed feeling to it and everything. Just not as much love given to the making of this one. So, which is unfortunate. It really is. We'll get into that. But anyway, so part 3 takes place a year after the events of the previous film, but 7 years after the events of the first one, and is also putting Angela at 21. So, yeah, like almost all other franchises, yeah, there's inconsistencies in this one. Whatever, it's peanuts. Whatever, man. Whatever. So, yeah, so this one is, it's set in the same location as the previous movie, but it has been christened, like many other camp-type movies, especially franchises, i.e. Friday the 13th, where this camp has been rechristened New Horizons. Now, New Horizons, a little bit different than our previous films. I feel like our first 2 films, when you look at them, a little bit different. You have one where, you know, our killer is a camper. Second one is a counselor in a camp and everything, so slightly different, change it up a little bit. This one's definitely a lot different in the sense that it's not necessarily a traditional camp. New Horizons is a social experiment, basically, that is taking a handful of kids from a more privileged class, more privileged upbringing, have like the finer things in life, and also a group of underprivileged kids who kind of come from bad side of the road and everything, bad side of the streets and everything. You see like maybe one of these bad kids kind of turning out to be like a decent person throughout, like, you know, little things happen, and, you know, whatever, the Hispanic male who is a gang member is the one that, you know, you see, yeah, he's in a bad environment, he's had a tough position in life and everything, he's in a gang, but you kind of see this experience, he's one that's kind of being affected by it and bringing out some of that positivity and everything. From the privileged group, we see this young redheaded girl from, like, I don't know, Ohio or something, you know, and not like, she's definitely not like the other privileged girls. She's a little bit more of like, she looks for the good in people and everything. So those are supposed to be kind of our, you know, heroes of the day and everything. Meanwhile, though, we have these 2 sort of like counselors who put this together and everything. Michael Pollard and Sandra Dorsey's character and everything. Michael Pollard, a lot of you guys will know his face. You know, perfect example of another movie he was in was Scrooge, that came out same year or the year before, year after this one and everything. I mean, he's been in a lot of different things. Fun little character actor and everything. He really plays that kind of like disgusting pervert. Well, not quite disgusting, but he's just a little horn dog who is trying to like slip his little hot dog into all the pretty young ladies, let me tell ya. And then Sandra Dorsey's character, who is the other counselor, married to Pollard's character and everything. Laziest person ever. Like, you could totally tell this is just a way to make a quick buck and everything. Because at one point, it's discovered that some of the girls were talking about One of the rich girls said, "Oh yeah, I think my parents paid like about $3,000 for me to come here," and they're all kind of figuring, okay, so if all of us paid that much, or the government paid that much for us bad kids, they're making a sweet payday. And throughout the movie, Sandra's character is looking at different like cruises and stuff and different ads and stuff, so that she's just trying to make a quick buck so she can go on a nice cruise or something. Like, yeah. And then we also have a third counselor, because the kids are like splitting up into three groups. In a police officer, Barney Whitmore. Now, aside from Angela, this is supposed to be the only other character from the other movies. Now, here's the thing. Here is Whitmore's backstory. So he's a police officer. He was supposed to, from what we've gathered from this one, from Sleepaway Camp 3, and from the previous one, Sleepaway Camp 2, he was the arresting officer, and his son was Sean from the previous movie. And he admits when he takes his kids to the little campsite, he's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't get a chance to do this with my son. I guess I'm just trying to kind of like make up for it by doing this and everything. I'm just trying to do something good." He admits, he confesses that his son was one of the victims at the camp the year prior to this and everything. So you kind of get a little bit of backstory. I mean, I like little things like this. I kind of like little characters like this, where like, yeah, he may not have been really brought up until like the second movie and stuff, or at least like the character acknowledgement of this character may not have been brought up until like the second installment, and then the third one actually appears and stuff. Little things like this, though, when you're adding like new characters and stuff, and especially it not totally out of the blue, I kind of like it. I wish they would have done a little more, given this movie a little more love and focus and everything, because little things like that you see could have been kind of exploited for the good in this movie, and unfortunately, just for like time restraints and everything, really wasn't. Like I kind of said at the beginning of this video, this is definitely at least of the three, because for me, I know there is technically one more actual sequel after this, but I truly feel like this is more of a trilogy. Sleepaway Camp is a trilogy to me. It's just the first three. I'll get to Return to Sleepaway Camp when I get to it, but, so for me, decent little trilogy of films, but the third one, obviously, for various reasons, just didn't quite measure up, which is unfortunate. But yeah, so, these kids are, kind of, trying to get to know each other, trying to kind of realize, like, hey, we might come from different backgrounds and stuff and upbringings, but hey, we could, potentially have things in common and everything, and I like that. I like that with this one, they were trying to do, something different, even with, like, part 2, as I was about to say that, I give it props because it was trying to do something a little bit different, not doing the exact carbon copy movie like other franchises, like, say, my beloved Friday 13th. I mean, I'm just saying, I know those movies literally are all the fucking same for the most part, but hey, whatever. Give this one props, especially a product of the 80s and everything, so... But yeah, in this one, definitely, I mean, there's some talk, there's some references to Angela's past and everything. Not so much on the whole, like, sex change. There's a little bit of talk, but there's not as much emphasis as, like, the first two movies. So, I mean, to a degree, it was kind of nice to sort of see that not being totally the focal point, because I feel like, yeah, after a while, even for a diehard fan of the first two movies, I think I'd be like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, she was a dude that was forced to be dressed up by her aunt, blah, blah, blah. At some point, you gotta fucking give it up, girl. But to just kind of show that Angela as a person is pretty messed up, maybe she just, she's just gonna keep killing and everything for various reasons and everything, and kind of finding her sort of killer voice and everything. So, but yeah. You know, yeah, this one, you know, is I keep kind of stating that it is pretty unfortunate that this was shot right after the shooting of the second one. I mean, in hindsight, I mean, normally I would say like, yeah, you know what? Maybe you were better off like waiting a year to shoot this one because, like I said, you know, '88 we got Sleepaway Camp 2, '89 we got this one. So I feel like there was no reason to do it back to back. I feel like maybe they should have, you know, waited a year, maybe worked on the script a little bit, just to go ahead and get like, you know, a little better quality movie. Because I mean, third one with any franchise, you know, like sequels usually 2 through 4, maybe 5, depending on the series, are very touch and go. Some of them are really kind of like the gems, the sequel gem of the franchise. Others, it's like, oh, you get to that one, you're like, oh, it was such a dud. This one, unfortunately, was kind of a dud. Not as much of a dud as Return to Sleepaway Camp. Once again, we'll get to that when I get to it. But yeah, this had a potential to become a decent little, you know, third installment. And honestly, to tell you the truth, if they would have waited a year, I think they could have done something relatively decent. Maybe have the same concept, but work on the story a little bit. Have like, you know, a fresh cast. Like everyone's nice and fresh and everything. They're not exhausted from the second one that they just finished shooting and everything. And I think it could, you know, I think honestly at the end of the day, it could have been a decent, proper little trilogy, you know, and I think everyone would have had, you know, maybe really loving the first one and then maybe having their favorites, you know, either second or third sequel that is their favorite and stuff. But we didn't get that. We didn't get that. You know, and it's still a decent one, but could have been better. Could have been better, you know. And I'm not gonna even like totally gripe on it too. Also, too, I was gonna say, you know, thankfully they maybe thankfully didn't wait a year on shooting this one because I know shortly or a few years after this was released, Double Helix, which was the company behind the sequels, went bankrupt and closed up shop. Yeah, even as they were filming yet another Sleepaway Camp movie, which, yes, I will talk about Sleepaway Camp for the Survivor. You know, I think, you know, even if, with that being said, with what we know now, if they would have had, you know, Double Helix at least selling, like, the rights and selling off some of the stuff they were working on to another company, you know, I think, yeah, we could have had a decent 3, had probably a kind of terrible, bad, but it's decent 4th installment. We didn't, but whatever. So, and you know, Angela in this one, I know I haven't really talked too much about Angela in this. I feel like I've talked about everything else. Still really like Angela in this one. I think Pamela Springsteen really does do a terrific job and everything. Interesting on the little flashback that she has though from part 2, which is totally was not even in the or in part 2 or anything. But it's a scene where she gets called up right after it's announced that she's counselor of the week and everything. She's doing this whole speech and everything. So it's interesting, like in her head, you know, we sort of see a glimpse of this, and you know, this is another one of those things that if, you know, if this movie wasn't rushed, maybe we could have like exploited this a little bit more and like seen a little bit more of this aspect. Where in her head, she thinks like, you know, she gives such a nice speech of like, oh, you guys really like me, and oh, there's so many, you know, people out there, like, you all know I was like abused and bullied and stuff growing up, and here there's so many great people, like it, you know, to see that sort of side of her. So he's like, you know, already that like, you know, there's like a switch, like you could tell how messed up she is and sort of like the mindset that she's in. I think, you know, if they would have gone with that, invested a little more time in that, tacked on a few extra minutes, it would have been a little more of an interesting story and everything. Like I said, it could have potentially been a nice little trilogy that we ended up with, but whatever. So yeah, Sleepaway Camp 3, of the 3, first three Sleepaway Camps, for me, it's probably the weakest one, but I still have fun with it. I don't watch it as much as the first and second one. Still have fun with it when I do watch it. I just have a good laugh. This is definitely the one that, if I do watch, I know I'm going to be kind of like, you know what? Let's have a couple of drinks or something, have fun with it, so... But anyway, guys, that is Sleepaway Camp 3, Teenage Wasteland. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about Sleepaway Camp 3. Until next time, as always, stay creepy, classy, and a little bit sassy.